Hi, everyone. I'm Rob Klee, a senior lecturer at the Yale School of the Environment and the managing director of Clean Energy Programs at the Yale Center for Business and the Environment. Welcome, and thank you for joining us today for this conversation about the CEED program. The Clean and Equitable Energy Development, or CEED certificate, is designed to equip professionals with the knowledge and tools and network to drive real impact in the clean energy transition. So whether you're looking to expand your expertise or deepen your understanding of energy justice and the clean energy development process, CEED provides a unique opportunity to learn from experts and collaborate with a diverse cohort of professionals. And we have two of those folks here today. I'm excited to be joined by two of our CEED ambassadors, Kathy and Macario, who are going to share some of their experiences, their key takeaways, and how they've used the CEED program so far in their careers. So thank you both for being here. Kathy, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Kathy Chavez Morris. My pronouns are she, her, ea, and I'm the CEO and founder of Equided Group, where we support clients in creating equitable workplaces, workforces, and marketplaces where everyone thrives. I've worked for over 25 years in local, state, and federal government, including municipally owned utilities, identifying opportunities to enhance resource conservation through inclusive programs and policies. I'm a Transformative Infrastructure Justice Fellow through PolicyLink, and I also was recently appointed to the California Department of Public Health Climate Change and Health Equity Advisor. I am the mom to two wonderful small human beings who are aged 8 and 14. So climate change is super important to me, and so is equitable energy. I'm thrilled to be here to share my experiences with the Yale Clean and Equitable Energy Development Program.
Awesome, Kathy. Thank you. Macario, a brief intro for you as well.
Sure, Kathy, that was a great intro. My name is Macario Sarsozo. My pronouns are he, him, and I live here in DC, Washington, DC. I'm a science communicator, a senior storyteller, and a content strategist. I'm also an environmental justice advocate. I'm currently the vice chair at the Sierra Club DC chapter, which has been a great experience. When I was in the CEED program, I was working as a content manager for a climate and energy nonprofit that was working in the building decarbonization space. I'm also a former television producer and writer. I transitioned out of TV through a master's in environmental science and policy a few years ago. And I'm currently also a NASA Develop Mentor, a program that I went through, a CEED ambassador now, and also a peer reviewer for the Springer Nature Journal.
So this is why I was so thrilled to have this conversation with both of you today and your different sort of paths and the ways you got to CEED. Maybe let's jump right in there. What led you, Kathy, to pick CEED? What brought you to this program?
Right. So I had worked for a large water utility for quite a few years in a metropolitan area, and I had a lot of experience with water, but not a whole lot of experience with energy related topics. And I had just completed an infrastructure justice, a transformative infrastructure justice fellowship. And so I'd opened up my own consulting firm, and I really wanted to dive deeper into energy solutions. And I started to explore what options were out there for education for me, executive education. And most of the programs that I looked into just really weren't highlighting a majority of the topics that the CEED program does. And because of that, I felt like it was really, really a very compelling program, both in content, but also in its accessibility for me as somebody who was working full time, was also running a business, was also a mom. And so it gave me a lot of flexibility to be able to work asynchronously for, part of the program, but then also to be able to work with my cohorts and attend classes online and be able to get the best of both worlds.
So Kathy, thank you for that answer and for sharing that sort of how to squeeze this type of experience into extremely busy lives, as most of your cohorts have those busy lives. Macario, same question for you, though. I'm just curious how a former TV producer ends up in this space. That seems like
I
crazy.
know.
Or
I
maybe it's
was
not that
asking.
crazy. I don't know.
I was asking myself that. I know, Kathy, you had mentioned that you did a lot of research to find this program, and I was looking, but a little more casually. My organization at the time offered a learning and development stipend, and so I was really interested to take advantage of that. And I came into that position. Uh, like that was my kind of my first post grad school job. So I was coming out of an environmental science and policy program into a very niche area of building decarbonization and energy justice. And so, even though I did have somewhat of a background in those topics, I really didn't dive into that in my grad program. And so I was looking for something that would kind of help fill those knowledge gaps. And I feel like I really lucked out because, again, I was looking around. I think it was somebody at the Beck conference that had mentioned the program, and I looked at it and I was like, wow, this, going through the curriculum, I was like, this is exactly what I need. Because I really wanted to have a better understanding of energy, just generally, but also more granularly, just because it's like it's really hard to have some conversations when you just don't understand the basics of energy. Like, how does the energy transform into other forms of energy? It's just like basics. I also focused a lot in my in school on environmental justice, but I did not have a deeper understanding of climate justice so much, and definitely not energy justice. And then the fact that we were doing like a deep dive into energy development, and I actually didn't even realize that it was going to be a group project. That was kind of perfect for me. So I don't know if I answered your question, but to get here, I've constantly been kind of reinventing myself. And in television, I was focusing on science and natural history, but again, you're constantly creating content that has to be entertaining more than informative or impactful. And I really just got to a point, I think, in my just life, I was like, I want to make impactful work, and I thought I had to, um, in some form. I don't think everyone has to go back to grad school, but I think I needed to get the skills and the knowledge to really do that effectively. And then so the CEED program was just like kind of icing on the cake for me.
So, Macario, I want to build off of that, word and that phrase, sort of impactful work, and the ways in which a program like the CEED program can sort of empower our cohort members to make that type of impact. Kathy, do you have an example of that, or like an anecdote of how you've sort of used the CEED program to really have that type of direct impact in the work you're doing?
Yeah, so very early on in the program, within the first couple of weeks, I actually reached out to the faculty to let them know that I had this really kind of um, this moment where I realized how impactful this program was, because I was sort of a conduit for information to communities that don't have access to some of this information, right? About energy equity and even just the fundamentals around energy. And I had been at that time, as I started the program, also in parallel working with some tribal communities around grid resiliency programs. They had received a grant from DOE where they were going to be and where they were reaching out to me to kind of ask for support. And I had realized in my conversations with them that they didn't actually fully understand some basic energy fundamentals. And they were going to the table with engineers who were really quite accustomed to the lexicon that, when you talk about energy. And that was really placing, creating this power imbalance when they were coming to the table. And so I said, hey, why don't I just pass along some of this information that I've received through this great program to you? And they were absolutely thrilled, because it really balanced out power for them as they were entering into conversations and agreements with these outside agencies around how they were going to work together, right? And it really was a feel-good moment, because I realized how much this program is so impactful, how much just by Yale providing this information to me, I was able to disseminate it to others. And it was just, it just was really this like amazing moment. And actually at the end of the conversation, when I passed along this information to them, which was just a basic kind of like, 101, energy 101, the tribe was like, wow, why didn't DOE give us this information? Because it was a document created by DOE. So it was a really great moment where I realized, this program helps to fill in gaps in places where they're needed, where it's needed.
Well, and for us as part of the program delivery team, hearing those stories about that impact that you glean something from our program on a Monday and you're sharing it with another group and educating, being a teaching of the teacher, and all of those things really brings us great sort of joy and pride. And it's truly the spirit with which we approach the CEED program, is getting this terrific sort of content that we have, and educators and professors and others, to folks who can literally take it and run with it and use it directly. Macario, do you have a similar story of your sort of ability to take what you learned here and apply it in the real world?
Definitely. I think even going back to my application, I think some of the questions were asking like, how do you think you'll use this? And I just knew immediately. I'm like, I think I'll use this on a daily, if not weekly, basis at work, because I was, again, working in energy and climate, with a variety of teams across our org. So we had research teams, policy teams, state mobilization teams, communications teams, and marketing teams. And to be able to really do my work better as the person who was kind of overseeing content, writing content, and creating content, it just immediately made it easier for me to connect with each of those teams, because they were all doing kind of different types of work around building decarb. And yeah, it just instantly made it easier for me to feel like included in those conversations, to be able to participate more. And that was like the first step. I was even like sharing some of our energy justice studies with our research team, and they're like, oh wow, this is amazing, we haven't seen this study before. But then I was also at the same time working on different campaigns for some of our different teams. And one of them was like a home electrification consumer facing campaign, and we were doing some short form video storytelling, blog content and social media content, but to help communicate some of these ideas to our, first to understand what some of the consumers were going through and what they're facing, like rate hikes, or just like the things that were keeping them from being able to electrify, for example. So it really helped to kind of spell those things out a little more clearly and understand where those communities were coming from.
And so, Macario, so I appreciate a number of things in that example, not the least of which is that the diversity of the world of this, the space of energy development is very broad. And what I hope CEED provides, and I think I hear it in both of your responses, is that sort of familiarity with what might feel like a foreign language almost of this world, and the dual worlds of energy justice and energy development, and how important it is to have those worlds actually talk to each other and understand each other in sort of more nuanced and sort of impactful ways. And maybe, Kathy, I'll kick it back to you to maybe talk a little bit about how the program tries to, within the program, foster those conversations, those discussions among your peers, or the sort of network. So maybe if you want to share a little bit about what you found within the CEED cohort and community that was interesting to you or engaging for you.
Yeah, I thought it was really wonderful the first time that we met. That, one of the first things I did was I shared my LinkedIn and then started looking up everybody else who was in my cohort, because I wanted to see what they were doing. And immediately, one of the things that I was really impressed with was how diverse the cohort was, but also how important and how impactful hearing a global perspective was on my experience. I think that I really started to recognize that I needed to make sure that I wasn't centering, my own thoughts and ideas as an American, right? Or American, somebody from the United States or from North America, and hearing all of these global perspectives in these groups, and also reading so many case studies around work that's being done internationally was really important. It was really thought-provoking to hear perspectives from other countries. So I really appreciated what I'm assuming was some intentional kind of balance in how cohorts are created, right? So that we are maximizing diversity of thought and, based on the type of industries we're in, right? The type of experiences we have already, and then the communities that we're coming from. I thought that was fabulous.
No, and it is intentional. It is part of our hope to bring together a really dynamic group of folks and then let you have at each other and sort of engage with each other. Macario, what is your sort of experience with either within the cohort or the broader sort of network of learners throughout the Yale ecosystem?
Yeah, I would echo that too. I really wasn't expecting such a broad and diverse perspective or like collection of voices. It was really refreshing because I actually did my degree with a concentration in international policy, and I was excited because I didn't really understand that was going to be part of this. But I think both things, like having the case studies, having the focus on solutions from other countries, but also having the voices in the room from those other countries was kind of a first for me. I didn't really I didn't expect it, but it was I didn't understand maybe how it would impact my learning, that it really broadened my mind. And I'm trying to remember some of the examples or the guest lecturers that just had these like amazing solutions to energy justice in Africa, and I would have had no idea that kind of thing was happening. And I also have a background in um, kind of international kind of affairs. I lived abroad. I lived in India and Japan, and so like seeing some of the solutions for Africa, I was like, oh, these can totally work in certain areas of India too. Like this needs to all be kind of shared. So it was nice to have all that. I also took advantage of the Clean Energy Conference that was happening, I think, right at the beginning or maybe in the middle of my cohort, our cohort. And that I think also made all the difference because I mentioned that before. I think that, I was feeling a little out of place, like a little bit of the imposter syndrome. I've kind of gotten used to that because like changing careers and going back to school and then being like the older guy in class, but then coming to this other space, it made a big difference for me to be able to connect with people in person and realize, like I think Kathy had mentioned, that everyone was bringing something unique. So, just lean into that unique perspective that you're bringing. And I think that once I kind of just, like remember that, it made a huge difference to like how I enjoyed the course.
I'm glad you brought up that Clean Energy Conference. Kathy, it looks like you wanted to jump in on that point, so go ahead.
I was just going to second what Macario said about the idea that, you look at what's happening globally and then reflect on how these situations or these solutions can be implemented locally. And as somebody who grew up in a community that had suffered a lot of disinvestment because of redlining, I really did see oftentimes, even though it was a global case study, the applicability of being able to implement some of these solutions at a local level in communities that, communities nearby me, right? Communities of color, right? Communities that had been struggling with access to resources and economic disinvestment. And it really just very much, it was a great opportunity for me to kind of see where these solutions were being implemented in other places and then reflect on how it had applicability so close to home.
No, that sort of universality of how we might solve these, clean energy development sort of challenges. You can really that is part of the spirit of the course, is that things that you learn about from a case in one part of the world has direct applicability to almost anywhere. I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't sort of pick up Macario's plug of our Yale Clean Energy Conference every fall, gathering of hundreds of clean
It
energy
was good.
engaged folks, including from our certificate programs. It serves as a reunion function to bring together existing and former cohorts as well. Macario, did you
Oh,
want to,
well,
jump?
yeah, I'll just add to that. I mean, it was a great experience just in itself, but we were also there with the FDCE program cohort, and that was great too, because I guess there weren't as many from our cohort because we had a smaller one. So it was great to hear what they were learning, and yeah, we just had so much in common. I think, um, just being around people that care about similar things and that are like interested to learn and find solutions. It was really inspiring.
Yeah, and I didn't have the benefit of attending the conference, but I will pitch the fact that even though I did not have a chance to go to the conference, I still had access to like all of those
Yeah,
folks who participated in this
yeah,
program, because we all, as certificate cohort members, are on platforms where we can chat with each other and share information. So it even though we were the first cohort, right, and like we're like small but mighty, there were many more who came before us who are still equally as committed to this work, just through a different certificate program. Yet we're all kind of working very much in parallel with each other.
And that
and
is all,
just yeah,
that's also intentional, to have this being a growing community each year, and that ability to sort of share your lived experiences across space and time with your other sort of members. Macario, one last one for you, but then I have a closing question
okay.
for you.
Can I add one thing real quick?
Yeah, please.
I just want to say how I was inspiring to see Kathy, how quickly she got kind of involved, like even like reaching out on LinkedIn, and then through the Yale program, the Yale platform. But I think it really makes a huge difference, like how much energy you put into it while you're in it. You're getting all of that back, and it does like pay off down the road too. People. I'm looking for a new role in science communication now, and I'm definitely using this network. People are so open to giving advice and helping, so I think it really makes a difference, how much you put into it while you're participating.
All right, so you've teed up my last question, but I'll start with Kathy. And this is if you go back in time and say something to your former self, or that person who's thinking about this program, what would be that one sort of bit of advice, or one sort of key, like, nugget that you would share that might convince them to go deeper and explore perhaps joining a CEED cohort?
Yeah, I think, when I kind of reflect on like that deciding factor for me, there was a lot of conversation in my head around like, wow, Yale is this big prestigious university. Do I really belong there? Like, am I going to be able to contribute to this group? Right. I mean, I know I'll be able to take away a ton of information, but where do I fit in this kind of ecosystem of knowledge sharing? And, I think the best, and I'm sure that there's folks who are watching this and kind of, reflecting on, the same kind of reservations. And I think the one thing that I kind of land on is this idea that if you don't think you belong, or you think maybe that's not a place or a space I should be in, then it's probably because there are not people who look like you or have experiences like you in this environment right now. And it means even more so that you should be here, right? Because we need to have more people at the table at these conversations with different experiences, bringing different thoughts and diversity of thought and different types of solutions to the table. So if you're concerned this isn't a space or place you belong in, it probably means you should absolutely be here.
That's terrific advice. And yes, that is our goal, that we want people to actually come and be part of those conversations and spaces, because otherwise none of this works without having all those diverse voices. Macario, any last sort of bits of wisdom for that potential future applicant?
Sure. Yeah, I would just say again that, and I think this is something that a lot of people have an issue with, is that imposter syndrome. I had that a little bit. Just I think maybe it was a little intimidating that it was Yale, but also, I was coming from a totally different perspective of like communications and content and storytelling, and there were people that had some of that experience, but that was kind of like that was the main like that was the gist of what I was bringing. And I did feel a little like, oh, do I really belong here? I've also been in many like situations where I did not feel like, or I felt like I was the only one. And I just realized I just have to like get over that, or, as much as you can, just let it go and, enjoy like the amount, like this really well created course, where we learned so much, and so much from each other and so much from the course. The other thing I was just going to say, like logistically, is I wasn't sure if I could make it work while I was working, because we had a really tight schedule, a lot of deadlines, a lot of meetings. But luckily, just because it was the one live lecture per week, everything else was pretty flexible, so that made it really easy to work around. So yeah, I mean, once I kind of figured those things out, I was good to go.
So those are both terrific bits of advice. They really embody the sort of spirit of the types of cohorts we want to create, where we actually, in order to do clean and equitable energy development well, you need all the skills and of all sorts of folks around the table. And you two are terrific sort of ambassadors of that. This has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for sharing a bit of you and your insights and your experiences with us. And for those who are out there listening, I hope you've heard about now that the CEED program is really, it's more than a learning opportunity. It's really about a community that is really of professionals helping one another navigate and develop leadership, I think, skills in this world of the clean energy transition. So if you're considering at all CEED, I encourage you to explore how the program could support your goals, and you'll hopefully gain that practical knowledge. You'll build these types of meaningful connections with some amazing people and really get those skills to make a difference out there in the real world. So again, Kathy and Macario, thanks so much. And
Thank you.
And thanks to all of you out there for tuning in. And we hope to see you in a future cohort.
Indeed.
Thank you.